Starting to go live here. Starting to go live here. And I'm getting audio kickback. So let me just solve that one. Okay, we are live on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitch, and Kick. I am very obviously a complete idiot. So we'll see how this goes today. Well, hi everybody. This is day one, technically day two of me live streaming, building a business. And I'm doing this live, primarily to hold myself accountable. I'm a big believer in transparency and authenticity, doing things for the right reason. So my hope is that by doing this live, by sharing the process, one, it'll force me to be a little bit more accountable as to how I do it. Two, I'll get to learn some new things, which is always fun. I have never live streamed before. I do not think of myself as a live streamer. This is just trying things out. And I think three, there's a lot of technology, there's a lot of software out there that gets built behind closed doors. And the message that you'll see and the branding that will come out from the company is one thing. What is actually happening internally is quite another thing. So the goal of this, if I even create a business out of this at all, is to be able to do something that I can be proud of, and to do something that is just a little different. So we'll see how this goes. So I'm going to make no promises. This might be a complete load of garbage. It might be good. I will apologize if you write to me and I don't see it. That is very likely for these first couple of streams that I'm doing. I am literally just going to be working and talking out loud to begin with. Okay, so the last time we were here together, by that I mean I was here by myself because I don't think anybody watched, we had talked through this site that I've set up called Sociatall, working title. And I was going through the different phases of what I intend to do to build this business. So the first stage was building out and being able to articulate the challenge well. The second stage, which I've done a little bit of, but haven't recorded anywhere in this site yet, is it's customer development. So this includes things like segmenting the market, understanding the roles that are in there, really cataloging all of the insights that you're getting out of your potential customers before you start, building up a few personas. And then several other pieces, competitive research, how we develop our ideas and our strategy, and then all the way through to forming the business, developing the product, and hopefully going to market successfully. So there are a lot of things involved in bringing something to life. Of note, what we're going to be doing in these sessions is I'm going to be using VS Code to update the site live. I'm going to be working on a local host, so you might not see the update straight away, but you'll see the update afterwards. And there is a QR code that you can use to go to the site. So when I say everything is in public, everything is in public. So what we also did last time is I started to think out loud about what I think the challenge is, what my diagnosis of the challenge is, and then we needed to start building out our provocation. So what is it that we're trying to do? Now, this was very scrappy, so I've gone away and tidied it up a little bit. And so my aim for today, I think, is to get as much of the challenge and the diagnosis done as possible, or at least articulated in the best way, before moving on to the provocation, which we probably won't get onto today. And I'm doing this until about 11:30. Let's have a quick look. 11:30 UK time, that is, which is where I'm streaming from. And I have, I think, one viewer who I will assume is my wife. But I don't see where to manage messages or anything else. So I'm probably not going to respond to messages today if any messages do come up, because I can't see where to do that, and I'll figure that out the next time. So it's just going to be me talking. Okay, so where did I get to last time round? So I think for those of you that don't know, what I'm trying to do is build a business to help charities. Um, and the reason that I want to help charities is really the things that are important to me are making sure that as many people as possible are healthy, be that physically healthy or mentally healthy, um, connected to each other, because it can be a lonely world and making real connections is hard for a lot of people. And I have to give people capabilities. I've been very lucky through my life to have met a lot of people that have given me the capability to do a lot of things. Um, and I'm fortunate to be healthy and to know how to learn new things. And I want to make sure that everybody else has that as well. And I think if you look out into the world today as to the organizations who are doing that most authentically, and who have the people inside who have the most passion for that task, it's charities, right? You get a lot of, in my opinion, very underpaid people, um, who are spending 40, 50, 60 hours a week trying to make other people's lives better. And I think that is a very noble cause, and one that I would like to support in any way that I can. So one way of me doing this is by attempting to start up a business that hopefully helps people in those charities. So I've been speaking to a few of them to understand, what help do you need? What's going on? So I've since found a little bit of information around this, and what's really interesting is what's happening with small charities in the UK, and that's primarily where I'm focused at the moment, because trying to solve problems for the world is tough. Maybe I'll get onto that later. But so UK charities have basically 13 charitable purposes, right? So there are 13 things that they're there to do. There's a link on the website. You can go and have a look if you're interested in what that is. We have 170,000 charities in the UK, and that is registered, active, doing something, right? They're still alive. They're not defunct. So there's a lot of organizations and a lot of people working on some really important things. And in here is things like hunger, culture, health, real human problems that aren't necessarily being picked up by a more centralized government. So these organizations exist, and there are a lot of people who genuinely care. I think what's really fascinating, though, is when you look at the data in terms of how much income these organizations make. Now, bear in mind, when I talk about these organizations, think about what they have to do, right? It's the people that work in them, it's the equipment that they need, the materials that they build out, getting out to market themselves, getting out to their communities, finding the people that need the help, building that, writing grants, right? Doing all of these things, reporting impact, so many things they have to do. But 94% of them in the UK are doing that on an annual income below £1 million. Now, if you work in a charity, that will come as no surprise. If you work in the private sector, you might think, how the hell do they do anything? And that's a good question. They get lots of volunteers, lots of support, but they will not be getting, the majority of them, a £30 million Series A funding round. So, they're working on small incomes and achieving a lot. But I think what's really interesting, there was a report, and I may share this as a link afterwards, but 72% of the charities that were surveyed, at least, just can't afford to invest in digital tools, which is insane, right? You think that of this number, 94% of those are below $1 million, and of those 72% can't afford the digital tools that they need. And this is what we're now in 2025. That's absolutely ridiculous, right? So there's something very broken going on there that we potentially need to fix. And here's the problem, right? For those of you working in smaller organizations, and I don't care if you're a charity, a private venture, or you're a startup, doing whatever you're doing, you'll know that you have this core group of activities that you want to do that are really important, that are really valuable. And then there is everything else. And we use technology to try and clear up everything else so that we can be as valuable as we can somewhere else, right? So technology isn't about taking away jobs or just making our life easier or making us work less hours. That's not what technology is for. It's to lift us up so that we can do things that make us human, to be creative, to be connected, to help each other, to be inspirational, right? And nobody or very few people want to be there really, really in the weeds and the drudgery, not feeling like they're adding any value. So that's what this should be. And what we're saying is, hey, the majority of these organizations can't do that. So there's a human impact in terms of, if you're working at these organizations, it can be very tough, because you've joined for a good reason and you're not getting to do the work that you really want to do. But I think more than that, if you think about this 170,000 organizations, let's say there's 2 to 10 people in each of these. Imagine the number of people who aren't being helped, or even worse, are going to lose that help because the charity's shut down, because of the lack of efficiency, because they can't streamline operations, because they can't deliver their services. Right? The human impact that is created purely because of this silly line, I can't get digital tools, so I can't help more people, to me is just it's absolutely enraging and baffling. And right, like, of all the problems that exist, being able to give digital tools to organizations shouldn't be a problem. Right? That should just be there. So that's one of the things that I want to do, and I'm kind of happy now with the challenge and the way it is. What I've done is stick to facts. I do need to add a few more links in here to be able to evidence and show where I'm getting these numbers from, because I think at the moment this isn't very transparent. So, fact, grab a pen. This is what I try and do in these live streams now as well. I'm not necessarily going to build everything in the stream. There's some grunt work that I need to do that I might use AI for as well in the future, that you don't need to see because it's boring. But you'll see the result of on here as well. So I need to add links to figures. And this comes from, again, I go back to the word transparency. If you see anything that you feel is not transparent or not clear, or you want to call me out something, please do, because how I'm trying to do this, before I even reach the idea or the solution that I'm trying to build, is to, from the ground up, from the foundation up, build this with as much transparency, honesty, and authenticity as I can, because I think particularly if you're going to be working with organizations that help or affect other people's lives, it's important that you're doing that with as much openness and reality as possible. We're not talking about making a plastic toy for somebody to enjoy. We're talking about a lot of the time the difference between life and death for people. So it's important to me to do this in the right way. So I do as well. So you can see that I've separated out the impact and the facts, and it's because I've got numbers for the facts, and I've got feelings for the impact. Now, this is something that I've been told by people who work in the charities. I probably need to do a little bit more work to flesh out, the numbers behind this impact, if there even are any. I think it's not unobvious, right, why it's happening, and so I'd be surprised if it wasn't. And we see it every day in our life, right? There are lots of people around the world who are in need of a huge amount of help, in our villages, towns, cities, local communities, international communities. If this wasn't happening, if everybody had what they needed, we wouldn't see all of these problems. But I would like to size the problem. But I think this goes into when you need to do things. I know this is a problem. I know that this impact exists. Today, for the purpose of building out a business, do I need the exact numbers right now? Probably not. But I would like to come back to it. So I will probably push that one off to when I've done a bit more customer development. I've got more into the research and the idea of development stages. Because I kind of like to see who's impacted the most, because I think that might start to change some of my ideas and some of the strategy and some of the go-to-market. But I think there's a later time to do that. So I'm okay with the impact at the moment, because I think that's about right. The implication, the lack of investment in digital technology within small charities, more than a market failure, it's a human tragedy with direct impact on the lives of millions of people. Yeah, I believe that. I honestly, if I'm open, I think this is a little bit too markety, right? Too doesn't feel authentic to me. Maybe it's the market failure. That's too corporate speak. Is it a human tragedy? I don't know. Maybe I'm making the implication bigger than it is. And actually, I need to take out the lives of millions of people, because I don't actually think that I can claim that yet. So let's do this. Oh, in fact, I'm working on the live site. So one of the things that I'm doing is I'm developing, and so I have a local version of this site on my PC. So as we go through these, I will be developing the local version, and then afterwards I'll tidy it up and push it to the live version. So you won't see the changes that I'm going to make, but we're going to, and I'm now in my code application. So this is the other thing I need to do. You're not going to be able to see the code work that I'm doing. So I need to change settings so that you can, but I'm not going to do that on this stream. So let me just write that down for myself. VS Code live for OBS. Okay, so in my code, I'm looking for the challenge page, which I'm now on, and I want to take out that millions line. Where is it? There we go. Direct impact on the lives of, let's just say, many people at the moment, because I think that is more realistic. Okay, there we go. So I think, to be honest, right now, I'm happy with the challenge the way that it is. I know the background, I've got the facts, I've got a good sense of the impact, and I've got the application. So I'm going to move on from this challenge, and I'm not going to come back to it until we maybe get later on down here. So the other thing we did last time is talk a little bit about the diagnosis. And this page didn't look like this the last time around. You can see we're very much in the state of building it out. So that's probably what I'm going to focus on doing today. And a lot of this is going to be me talking things out to be able to clear up the vernacular, right? To get to a place where anybody can read this who works in a charity, anybody who can read this who works in a software organization, or anybody just generally day to day can read this and say, yeah, that feels right. That feels like the right diagnosis. And what we're doing here in the early days is we don't necessarily have to perfect it, but we have to get it feeling right. And the reason that we don't have to perfect it is when we do our customer development, we're going to be speaking to so many people who are in those organizations, who are feeling those pains. We're going to be articulating and expressing that diagnosis in a better and better way all the time. So this is something that will always evolve, and with time, it will change. But I think in order to really start building out an idea, to understand who you might be competing with and start coming up with a strategy, you really do have to understand, okay, this is the challenge, but what are the underlying problems, right? What are the root causes to the challenge? And in understanding that sort of tree, that set of root causes, you can start to identify like, oh, okay, this is the part of the challenge that actually is always going to be there. There's no piece of software that's magically going to solve this problem. But here's an area that actually shouldn't exist as a problem. We can tidy that up. So what it does is, rather than making you feel like you have to solve the world's problems, you're searching for the little bits and pieces that you have to do. Okay, so what have we got? So I started to group the reasons that we went through last time into these little drop downs, or accordions as they're called. So the first one was foundational gaps in readiness, and I have to remind myself of what this is. So what needs to be there for a charity to get started with my solution, or whether I want to go right from the start. Maybe I can use generative AI to help. So I'm already solutioning here. So let me take that out, because that should not be in there. I think that was a note for myself from last time round. So absence of a clearly defined mission, vision, and strategy to guide digital efforts. Yeah, I mean, that's true. If you don't even know what you're doing, why are you thinking about buying technology? So that's a good example of one I'm not going to necessarily solve. Now we could say, hey, if it's really hard to articulate this mission, really hard to articulate this vision and strategy, maybe we can help. So in fact, maybe that's part of the solution. Maybe the first thing is this is probably the generative AI note, is let's help you. If you're not somebody like I am, if you're not somebody who can write eloquently and brilliantly and succinctly and in incredible speak that calls to people, help me help you to do that. So I think that's still relevant. So an inadequate understanding of what a digital baseline looks like for charities. Yeah, I mean, there's an educational piece here where, if you don't understand how technology can help, right? If you don't know what you don't know, how can you move forwards? And do you know that you probably need some kind of CRM? Do you even know what a CRM is? Right? If you don't, that's not necessarily a problem because you're going to find out, but it'll slow you down. So I think maybe what there is here, there's definitely some digital education that we may need to add in. And I think this is interesting, right? Like, I think so many organizations, not just charities, but small businesses, will get started with an idea. They'll build up and they'll do a bunch of stuff. But they don't really have a plan for what technology and digital tools are meant to do for them. Right. And so there's usually this real miss between what our mission is and how we are going to use technology to help us achieve that mission, and that vision and that strategy. So all of these three, you can imagine if you've got these three, I mean, you're not going to have technology, right? So this really starts from, some people say it's the top, but I think of it as the core or the center. Training and lack of first systems to manage and analyze donor or beneficiary data. So I think what I mean by that is when you've started doing stuff, if you're not tracking volunteer activity, if you're not tracking how much donors are spending, right? Just fundamental things that you need to do to say, here's what's happening in my charity, and here's how I'm going to use that data to report up to my trustees, to the people giving me grants, to the people giving me regular sort of micro donations. You don't have that baseline. So I've definitely heard some of this, and I think this is not so common in late stage charities, right? This is really from the very, very early. But this is hard. And I actually, the more I think about this, the more I think about these foundational gaps, things that we might be able to help with. If you are just starting a charity, if you haven't done a lot of work with technology, if you are not necessarily a technology phobe, but you don't have the confidence that you need to work with and put together a technology stack, but it's hard. And frankly, why would you want to, right? If you're out there helping people, your first thought isn't, I can't wait to get going with my tech stack, right? You're saying, I can't wait to help people understand that this is a real human issue, and that we need to help and that we need resources to do that, right? That's what I want people doing. I don't actually want people wasting time figuring out their tech stack. So that's maybe a big area, right, where we're diagnosing the problem of not being ready, not having the money. Sometimes it's the money, sometimes it's just like, hey, we're not ready. And so the question I need to ask myself is how could I help people be ready, right, for more maturity? What does that maturity curve or stages for charity look like? And so this could go into my go-to-market, it could be content, it could be all sorts. But I think, I don't feel like I need to add to this or change anything. That feels like most of the foundational gaps. So I'm going to move on from that. I'm happy with that. So the second one, lack of strategic direction. Let me take out the word summary because we don't need that there. Okay, so limited belief in the impact of digital transformation within the leadership team. I mean, if you don't believe that technology can help, I can't help you with that. I mean, maybe I can show you, but I think there's something called the adoption curve where you've got early adopters who just try out new things, regardless of whether they're going to work or not. It's new, it's cool, it's fun, it's exciting. And then the majority of people start to take that on. And then you've got the people at the end who are like, oh, fine, I'll do it, right? That's the adoption curve. So at this point in 2025, if you don't think that technology can help you, you're probably not the right market for me at the moment. So this is a good example of maybe later in the maturity, this is something that I want to tackle, to evidence, to show, but I'm not going to worry about that too much now. This is a big one. And in fact, I'm going to move this to the top because I suspect, but I need to validate that this is a challenge. When you're running on fine margins, it can be really hard to pause, to take a breath, and to say, I'm going to stop doing all of this work that's just keeping us alive. Just stop it. And I'm going to focus on strategy and transformation and digital tools and initiatives, and I'm going to go out and research and do all of this stuff, right? Where are you going to get the time for doing that? You have the awareness that you want to change, you have the desire that you want to change, but you've just got to get stuff done, right? Like, you don't have the luxury of figuring out your digital initiatives, right? You're not a 50-person marketing team, you're a 1-person or 2-person everything team. So, when I think about what that means for what we're going to build, all I can think here is what we need to make. Whatever gets built needs to be incredibly easy. I don't need you to do a digital initiative. What I need you to be able to do is on a whim say, it'd be really great if there was something that did this. You need to be able to find it, exactly what you need, in a few seconds, set it up. I don't want to have to spend hours and hours and hours onboarding you. You just need a quick thing now that can help you in that moment. So this might go into some of our idea development. I'm not going to put it in there yet, but I will make a note of it. But it might be that instead of whatever we're going to build, I have no idea what that is yet, instead of building this big platform that's going to change and transform your life, I think for a smaller charity, it's more about how do we have lots of little things that you can just use straight away. But how do those little things talk to each other and set up? So it's almost like having a series of microservices that you can pick and choose from that will seamlessly work together as soon as you need them to. But that don't require you've got to do this for this bit to work, this for this bit to work, this for this bit to work, right? Which is how a lot of complex software works. Because then it's change management and that becomes a lot more complex. So yeah, this one feels like a big one for me. Limited belief, yeah, we've done that one. Ambiguity about the specific benefits digital tools can deliver to charities. I don't know what that means. I wrote that. I feel like it means exactly the same. I'm going to get rid of that. Am I? Ambiguity about this? But yeah, that's just not very helpful. I think, yeah, fragmented or unclear decision-making process. This is not a charity problem. This is an everyone problem, right? Like, can I get this software? I'm not sure that I can help with that one. I think this one ties into foundational gaps. Maybe I think if you've solved a lot of your foundational gaps, particularly this tie from mission to established process, right? This goes away. What I would love, I think, in a charity is this: hey, we recognize that technology can really, really help advance our mission. If you see a tool, a function, a thing that you'd like to use, we're very pro. Here's the criteria that we will say yay or nay to, and here are the people that need to give sign off. Just have that in a document somewhere, right? Like, a leader should be able to put that together, even a scrappy version, super scrappy, in 5 minutes, just so people know. And that gives them a little bit more. They have to think less, right? This is all about reducing the amount of time you have to think so that you can spend more time on the people getting the benefit. Resistance to change due to fear of failure, disruption in traditional workflows. I might separate these out. No, I'm not. I'm going to keep this one as the same. So sometimes, it's better the devil you know. And I think when you're doing software and technology change, right, you're aware that it's going to take time. But every single software company is going to say, wow, this is really easy. We'll migrate you. We'll do this. And your life is going to be so much better as soon as you use this magical new tool. And that's not reality, right? Like if you're using a lot of software and you need to change, you've got to change how you use it. You've got to move data over. There's a lot of work that goes into changing tools. And I think in an industry where people are already stressed, there's definitely a fear of, do we want to stress out more people? And bear in mind, some of these are not even uh, paid employees, right? We're talking about volunteers, people giving up their time. Do we want to stress people out even more and risk them leaving? So I don't know if this is strategic direction. It sort of is, but I think this is just it ties to that fear. So and to me, this goes back to, the more I think about this now as I build this out, the reducing effort as part of the fabric of whatever we build, I think is going to have to be critical, because you're not a Fortune 500 company with millions to spend where you can hire an agency and outsource and do all of this sort of stuff to just get it up and running, right? Chuck money at the problem. You can't chuck money at the problem, and often you can't chuck time at the problem. So I'm going to have to reduce the money and the time that it takes. So I'm going to note this down. And I think, what's probably missing in here is almost like the sort of the ethics or the values. And perhaps I might make another section up here. Let me note that down. For ethics and values, because I think reducing effort has got to be up there. Right. And so notice, by the way, with all of this, if anyone's watching, very intentionally, I'm trying to avoid solutioning. I'm trying to avoid ideas. As soon as you start coming up with ideas and saying, this is what I'm going to build, you often close yourself off, right? You narrow your focus far too early. So if you're not in a rush, which I'm not, being able to give yourself the space to understand, the tools to be able to think and sound things out is pretty critical. Okay, so let's see, where are we going to go next? So I think the only other thing that I've actually learned in a recent interview, which I'm going to add to like a strategic direction, is sometimes charities are just going through change or transition. So you may be a charity that's been around for a large number of years. You set out with a mission, let's say 15, 20 years ago, and you've actually largely achieved that mission. So then there's an inevitable moment of, well, what's next, right? What do we do? And sometimes the answer might be shut down. We're finished, we're done. Thumbs up, guys. Good work. I think other times, you have that moment of transition. Well, what are we going to do next? And how does that change, right? You're almost going back to your mission, your vision, your structure. Now, while you're transforming, you still need to do the day-to-day work, but there's very little point in taking on new technology when you don't know what you're going to be doing next. So it causes this state of, we're just waiting for the strategy to be ironed out. So I'm going to add in there, so this isn't resistance to change. This is charity is going through transformation and is not ready to take on new software. Don't like that. Charity is going through transformation and is not ready to make meaningful decisions on new or existing technology. That's better. I like that more. Okay, cool. So I think for now that's good on lack of strategic direction. I think these other three are going to be a little more straightforward, but let's have a look. Think about how we make any software free. Oh, I have too many solutions in here. It's so easy to do this. Just pretend that you're thinking about the problem when actually you're thinking about solutions. And I've been doing that on this stream as well. Okay, so difficulty tying investment for digital. That's a horrible sentence, isn't it? Um, let's do. It is difficult to tie investment into digital tools to outcomes for beneficiaries. That's much better. And yeah, it is, right? Like if you give money to a charity, you want to know that that is going to help the people that it's meant to help. If that charity says, hey, we spent that on a MacBook, cool. How does that help? And how the heck, as a charity, do you tie those things together? Hey, great, we built a piece of software. Here's what it means. I think that's quite a hard thing to do. So this may go back into our ethics and values piece again, but I do think there is something here around, how could we use technology to better tie or to better show the impact of investment in technology to benefit for beneficiaries in a way that is so transparent, so clear that it's always almost impossible to argue with it, right? Because I think that would give people faith that, okay, I understand that you're not spending this money here, but I understand that by spending it here, it will have this long tail impact. I think it's really hard as a charity to be able to show that long term impact or long tail impact, sorry, I should say. So there may be something in this around outcome chains, or maybe showing the path of the money. I don't know yet, but maybe it is maybe that ethic is just we have to show impact. We have to show impact of investment. And I think actually charities have to do that anyway, right? When they get grants, people who give them grants will want to know what their money's been spent on. So I think this might just be about tweaking it. Don't know. Persistent stigma around operational cost prevents securing funds. That is true. So that goes back to the educational piece. Over reliance on grants and donations, which often exclude digital investments. Yeah, I think that's true. It's hard to diversify revenue streams. So maybe part of this is also, well, I guess there's two solutions to this, right? One is to give the software away for free, and I can figure out how to do that. And that might actually be easier. I think the point here, right, is sometimes it isn't just like, hey, we don't have money. But even if you've got $1 million, right, you've got money. I think maybe it's harder to justify spending money on tech. And in fact, all of these are that, right? This is, if I need to be really, really responsible for the way that charity funds are dealt with. And this isn't just I should make sure I'm making the right decision. This is a responsibility of trustees. So if you're running the business, the trustees are going to need to know, are we spending our money responsibly? And if you need all of these tools because they're shiny and flashy and look good, if you can't really articulate the story as to what it's going to do, the impact that it's going to make, right? Everyone's going to be nervous. No one's going to want to do that. So I think there are a lot of really cool things with UK charities where they make sure that funds are spent in the right way, right? That's the purpose of having this legal vehicle, because it's your responsibilities are very different to a private business. But I think that also forces organizations to become more conservative in the way that they do things. Or they have to get really smart, but that takes time and energy and mental effort, which should be spent on beneficiaries. So it's a little bit of a chicken and egg, this one. So I think difficult to tie investment into digital tools. Maybe I'm going to put it here. I think I'm going to have to change this one eventually, but it's hard to justify spending money on technology to stakeholders, regulators, and uh, donors and grantors and everybody else, but that doesn't. Okay. Um, I think that's really key. So there are probably more, but I think that sums it up. So for those three, are you even ready? Do you have the right strategy? Are you together? Do you have an approach as to how you're going to use technology to solve these issues? And do you believe? And are you all in? And do you share a language? And um, are you mentally ready? I guess to do this. And then how do we solve the this financial piece? I think is going to be a really fascinating challenge in this conundrum. Okay, time constraints and overload. I've done my summary piece again. Let's get rid of summary. Goodbye. I'm going to have to figure out, this is probably something I'm doing. I shouldn't have to keep clicking this. Okay, so suffer with one big tasks needing over for long-term planning. I mean, that just is what it is. These I think are going to be the same for any business. Lengthy onboarding processes to deter adoption of new tools we've talked about, time to research, evaluate, and implement. Yeah. This is all. Well, look, I did have transition periods as well. So this is all just like we're busy, right? I think I want to keep this in here because I think it's important to remember, and it'll just be that additional reminder that there's overload in the business. But I think I'm going to leave that how it is. I don't think there's anything to add here, right? We all face this. There's always more to do than we have the time to do. It's difficult to prioritize. I think this goes more into, I think it's easy to look at this and say, oh, well, why not build a project planning tool to add into the million and one project planning tools that are already there? But I don't think that's the problem. I think, you're never not going to be busy. I think the key thing is going to be, if we build something, how do we not get in the way? I don't want to be the tool that's like, hey, we want to be this deep partner to your business and talk to you every day. No, you don't want that from us. You just want something that's good, that helps you do what you're doing as quickly as possible. So it's speed, efficiency, ease, all of this comes into this. Operational complexity. So where was I going with this? Let me delete my famous summary word. Let's have a look at what we were doing here. This is why I write all of this stuff down, by the way. It used to be, when I was thinking about doing this stuff, that I would keep all of the information in my head and I would say, I know what the problem is here because I'm living it every single day. Right? I don't want to waste time by recording what I already know. There's no value in that. What I'm finding now is that the more you write down, the more you're able to come back, the more you're able to re-look at. You're able to sort of create a panel of yous, right? Your old self, your new self, everybody else, and have that conversation. So, and because you forget, right? There's so much going on, you're just going to forget things, and then you're having to relearn things that you've already learned. Very silly. My memory's terrible as well, so it helps me to write things down. So, managing diverse volunteer roles requires tailorable, scalable solutions. Different stakeholders have conflicting needs. I don't know if operational complexities causes this challenge. Because again, I think what I'm basically just saying here is we have a lot of stuff to do. Yes, we have to do it in a regulated environment. I think for charities, for those of you that don't know, I mean, it is painful, right? Like you've got to get back to your trustees, to your donors, you've got to communicate to your beneficiaries, to your volunteers. So you've got sort of business activities to do, plus another 20% things because your complexity and your number of stakeholders is just so high. So the question is that part of the diagnosis, or is that just something that is? Because this doesn't feel as buttoned up as the rest of the sections. I might take this out. And I think having just said that, I write everything down, but I think this is good, right? This is where we go through it, because is it important to the solution? Because what I'm really talking about here is charities have to do a lot of things. And if I'm going to build technology, that technology needs to help them do those things. And to be honest with you, I think that's going to come through from our idea development. This is just activities. This is alluding to features and ideas, and all the things that charities need to do. And I don't know whether we're going to need to do all the things that a charity needs to do. So I think maybe what happened, I'm going to take this out. I've made that decision. So operational complexities is going to come out. We don't need that in there. I think it overcomplicates something that doesn't need complication. But I do think we'll revisit it when we get to customer interviews and ideas to say, well, hey, what are the things that you do where technology needs to help you the most, whereas sometimes you're already going to have it. So, it's funny. I'm looking at these 4 foundational gaps in readiness, lack of strategic direction, financial barriers, time constraints, and overload. This is every company, right? So I think that's a good thing. We're on the right track. I think there is definitely nuance to these for charities, but these are problems that in the private world we've had for a very long time, and there are lots of very good solutions to these problems. And I'm actually quite surprised that they haven't been dealt with already. But I think this is what we'll do, as we go through our provocation and as we go through our customer development, idea development, we will frequently come back to these, I think, to make sure that are we solving for these 4? If we're not solving for these 4, either with our business model or with our technology, what are we doing? So in a way, actually, this is good. I think these are the big 4 headlines to solve. Now, I think, so let's go on to this next section. So this is just a little bit of text at the moment. So venture back. So I think what's important in the diagnosis here, particularly when it comes to finance and when it comes to time constraints, is to understand that this isn't just a charity issue. Right? Because I said at the beginning, isn't it crazy that we can't just give digital tools to the people, really, really good digital tools to the people who are doing good for humans? And so the question is, well, why don't we? And there is a set of stuff behind that. So I'm actually going to start to rewrite this, but maybe what I'll do is I'm just going to, this is going to be super scrappy and it's not going to be very tidy because I'm hard coding this. But I want to make this a little bit easier to read, so I'm just going to line by line it. So let's talk about what it actually costs for software. So we have people costs, right? You need, and in fact, I've already got this here in the text. So let me just do this. So you've got if you're a larger organization or even a smaller organization starting out, you've got your executive team. You need to pay their bills. You've got operational stuff you need to do. People that need to pay their bills. I'm not going to say people that need to pay their bills every single time. You've got all the people building out your product. So that's product managers and designers and engineers, and right. So there's a big people cost in making software. And yeah, AI is helping speed that up and lower the cost, but it still requires people. If you've never coded before, one of the really fun things with code is, yes, you can probably get an AI tool to build you out something quite simple, and then you'll find that whatever you've built it in has changed or upgraded. Right? You think about how the internet's changed over time. You need to constantly rewrite things, rewrite. That's where a lot of work comes from. Anyway, sorry, off on a tangent. So people costs. You then have technology costs, right? You have to, you've developed your software, big whoop, but you've got hardware that you need to do all of that development on. You then have the cost of compute, right? So typically when applications are run in the cloud, they might be hosted on, let's say, an Amazon server or a Google server or whatever else. And Amazon, Google say, hey, well, yeah, we'll give you this server, but for all the time it's running and you're running operations on it, you're going to be charged X pence, cents, dollars, whatever it is, right? So all the time your service is running, you have to pay for compute. You also have to pay for storage. Now, storage is quite cheap these days, comparatively to how expensive it used to be, but it's still there. Compute even more now with AI. I mean, the cost of compute is crazy, 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 crazy. So hardware, compute, storage, and then all the tools, right? All the software that you need to buy and build to run all of that, right? Is a cost. So we have people costs, technology costs, and then you've got other things like let's say regulations, standards. And by the way, when I was talking about operations before, that's also your really important functions, right? Legal, accounting, because you are running a business. So you've got not just the people costs, but you've also got, let's do business operating costs. So that might be filing fees, legal fees. It might be if you're in a regulated industry, you need to get certifications, training, right? There's a whole bunch of stuff that you need to pay for. And then finally, right, so you've got all these costs. This is just standard. So if you're setting up by yourself, it's really, really hard to build B2B software out of your garage, right? Because this is no mean feat. Oh, sorry, I forgot that I've gone away from this. Here you go. Let me just change that a little as well. You know, it's really, really hard to be able to do those three things. So on top of that, I'm just going to add in a line break, and I will remember this time to refresh the page so that you can actually see it. Because that was done. Like I told you, I'm doing this for the first time, so bear with me as I'm figuring it all out. And how long have we got? We've got 10 minutes left, so that's fine. So on top of that, we've also got the fact that the vast majority of software businesses are venture-backed. So yeah, going back to this cost, right? Like it costs a lot to get things up and running. And the costs a lot to get things up and running. And so typically what happens is you'll work with an organization like a venture capital fund, angel investors, even family and friends, say, hey, look, I've got this challenge. We've come up with our product. We know what's going to solve that. But in order to build it, we need investment. We need capital. We need money so that we can go and do the thing. And so in theory, it's really simple. It's like, great, well, that sounds like a good idea. Here's money. But then typically when people give you money, they're not doing it out of the goodness of their heart. Sometimes they are. Right? But they're doing it because they see an opportunity. They see an opportunity to make more money back. So that either means for themselves, or if you're in a venture capital company or a private equity company, or even if you're investing in stocks and shares, right, your expectation is that the value of that goes up. So the second that as a software company you take investment, part of the other thing that you have to do is factor in profit, right? It's not just about your costs. The onus, the goal now is to make profit if you're a private company. So as a result, private, actually, I don't know that it's true that the vast majority of software companies are venture-backed. What I'm going to say is instead, many complex software companies require investment to get off the ground, right? Because it's not just the technology, it's the marketing, it's everything else. And so take on investors, right? They become private companies, and a big part of what they need to do is make a profit, right? And this is sometimes a profit for the people in the business. It's sometimes a profit for the investors. But I think, look, here's reality, right? Like life is hard. Money for some people makes it easier. And so if you don't have much, right, the idea of going to work for a technology company, working really, really hard, giving up a lot of your hours, but coming out of that with a big pot of money is very appealing for people. And if you're doing venture capital as a job, then part of that job is to wisely and intelligently invest the money that you're being entrusted with through companies, right? So there's a lot of downward pressure in software to not just create great stuff, but to make stuff that's profitable, or sometimes even worse, to set up your business as an object, so that later on down the line, another company can say, "Oh, this would be a really nice business to buy. That looks great. I'm just going to buy that whole business," right? Almost like an item. So that often means that instead of let's make great technology that helps people, the second that you get into this money rat race, um, it becomes about how do we make as much money as possible. Yes, we want to achieve a good social aim, and that's good. But this is hard, right? So the point is that this software cost challenge means that it's really, really hard to just say, I'm going to create free software. And there are people that have done it. So if you look at FOSS, which is free and open source software, the open source community is phenomenal, right? Like it's really dedicated people making technology, giving it away, often at the start for free. Some of those organizations end up getting funded by other organizations who rely on their software. So it's a little bit like the charity system, but for sort of businesses, and you end up having these critical pieces of technology, and you're like, maybe all of us better make sure that the people that are working on building that and maintaining it are fairly compensated and rewarded. So I think, when I look at this, right, I look at the space that we're working in with charities, small charities, and I look at the goal, which is we just want to give as many people as possible better lives, right? Like that's it. That is the goal. I've lived that part of my life where I cared about money. I don't care about money anymore. I'm going to be poor and broke. I don't care. It's much more rewarding for me to see other people flourish. That's what I care about. So I just want to give away as much as I can whilst just surviving. So I've still got to eat and live in a place. So, I think this is what I'm going to have to avoid. This is going to make things really hard. And so when we go through strategy development, what I'm going to have to figure out is, how do I build a business that doesn't rely on copious outside, or if any, outside investment? What I might need to do is run this business as a non-profit, because really what I'd like to do is live, obviously, but to just say to charities, here is software. You can pick up bits and pieces that you want to use at any time. It's completely free. It works great. Don't worry about it. Just I'm not going to sell you on anything because I've got nothing to sell. I'm not going to market. I'm just, here is a great thing that you can just use. And it's all connected. It works with your existing stuff and it's free. In order to do that, when I think about, we're going to have to be really, really smart as to how we set up the business, lean in who we do it. Obviously, if I go down the non-profit route, we can do things with volunteers as well, but I don't want to rely too much on that. So as I build this business, I may have to integrate more with that open source community and work out how to do that. So again, I'm straying into solutioning and strategy now, and it's really, really important that I don't do that until we get there. But this is why we go through the development of the challenge to understand what's important, keep to what's critical, stay as long as we need in this section. But I think we're there, right? Like I feel like if I look at this challenge now and say, we've got a bunch of charities who don't have money and can't get software. Without the software, they can't get more money. And they're trapped in this horrible spiral. But yeah, of course, because if they're not enabled and they can't spend the money and they don't have the time, how the heck are they ever going to get there? And if everyone in software is just trying to make as much cash as they can because, ooh, I need another yacht, why? That's never going to be solved. So I'm going to tidy up the software cost challenge after this call. but I think that's what we need to focus on. So I haven't done this on purpose, but that brings us to the top of the hour. So I'm going to go away and think more. But the next time around, I might do a live stream again tomorrow at the same time. We're going to look at this provocation. So the idea of a provocation, and I've got to thank a group of people called Venture Punks. They called this the punk provocation, which I really like, that I'm shamelessly stealing because I like the way that they formatted it. But they're basically saying, you know, what you want to write is, how might we do something? Ignore what I've got here. This is just placeholder, but how might we achieve something for the group of people that we're trying to help in a way that does this, so that blah, blah, blah. You can read this. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the essence, or the secret sauce, that core of the challenge. We're going to take the really critical pieces here in our diagnosis, and we're going to build this into a provocation. What we'll be able to use the provocation for when we're going out for our customers is to be able to say, hey, look, here's the challenge, here's what we think, here's a hypothesis, here's what we're trying to do. Is this something that calls to you, speaks to you? Yes, great. Then help us to understand the problems behind the problems, right? So we're going to build out more and more insights, because as we get into understanding who's already trying to solve these problems and who's doing a really good job at it, and how are they doing it, and how are we going to be different, having done all of this work early, although it takes time, is going to be fundamental to doing things in the right way. And hopefully these live streams turn into something more. So with that, I'm rambling now, so I'm going to end this stream. Hopefully this has been helpful for at least one of you. And if there is only one of you watching this, thanks for sticking with me as I figure all of this out. And I will see you on the next one. Goodbye. Say goodbye. I've now got to end all of these live streams one by one. Start with YouTube. Goodbye, YouTube. We will try and go on to LinkedIn next. Yes, thank you. Goodbye.